The bird called the scrub jay, and another one for sea turtles. Now, coming up here on our left side, we're going to be passing by a portion of our Lands of Change loop. Lands of Change features the birds and animals from Asia and Australia. And that means you can go on a walkabout with our kangaroos and emus. Or you could meet our Komodo dragon. Or you could take a stroll through the two-sided aviary that we're passing by here on our left. And we'll talk a little more about the aviary on our return trip. Just recently here at the Brevard Zoo, we opened a new exhibit. It's called Sculpture Safari. It consists of 16 life-size metal sculptures of wild animals. Now, they're scattered throughout the park, but there's a great example coming up here on our left side in just a moment. There's a family of 4 elephants. All of these sculptures were created by young people from Nairobi, Kenya in Africa, and they're all made from reclaimed auto parts. Now, as we enter the tunnel here, if you look down on the ground to your left, you'll see 3 large, round, white objects. Those are actually ostrich eggs. They were laid by our very own female ostrich here at the zoo. Each ostrich egg can weigh as much as 3 pounds. Just to give you some rough idea, that's about the same weight as 2 dozen chicken eggs. And if you were to try and create a hard-boiled ostrich egg, you'd have to boil that for about 40 minutes. As we exit the tunnel here, this brings us out into our animal habitat. And I just have to remind you, our animals are wild. They can be a little unpredictable. You may have one of them walk right up to the train and check out all the passengers. You may see them lying or standing next to the track. So we just ask that you please don't shout at them. Don't reach out and try to touch them. We don't want to frighten our animals. And of course, we don't want them to frighten you either. If you look to the left from the train, occasionally there's a gap in the trees. You'll be able to catch a glimpse of our Niami River. You'll see it a little better in just a couple of moments. But Niami is actually the name of the Zambezi river god in Africa. It's kind of a strange looking guy. He's got the head of a fish, the body of a snake, and then arms and legs like you and me. Now, our guests 5 years of age and older can take a guided kayak tour around the Niami River, and that gives you a little different perspective on all of our African animals. Just past this last patch of scrub palms here, you'll be able to look across the Niami River through the rail fence. There's the habitat where we keep our grevy's zebra and also our southern white rhino. I can see 1 or 2 of each over there. Let's talk about southern white rhinos for a moment. Southern white rhinos, the first thing you notice about them, they're not actually white, they're gray. They're covered with brown mud and dirt most of the time. Southern white rhinos have 2 big horns on the fronts of their faces, but surprisingly, the horns are not attached to their skulls. The horns are made out of keratin, which is the same material that makes up your hair and fingernails. Just like most of us today, a lot of our animals have retreated to the coolness of some shade. We've got a couple of big brown animals over here on our right that I'm pretty sure you can identify on your own, but those are our 2 camels. These 2 are actually brothers. Their names are Sammy and Frankie. They're 9-year-old dromedary camels. More about them in just a moment. But coming up on our left side here among the trees, you'll see 4 smaller deer-like animals. Those are actually impala. Impala are a type of antelope that live in the savanna regions of Africa. This is 4 male impala. You can see they've got horns. Only the males in that species can have the horns. And they're really good jumpers. They can jump 10 feet straight up in the air from a standing start. Also over on the left there, our female ostrich. She's a little hard to see. She's got grayish-brown feathers. Her name is Wendy. Grayish-brown feathers are on purpose. Female ostrich have that coloration to help camouflage themselves while they're nesting. Now, the big brown and white animals with really long horns, these are called scimitar horned oryx. They're another type of antelope, and they live in the desert regions of northern Africa. Now, both males and females in that species can grow those horns, and the horns reach a length of about 4 feet. And as I always tell people, I'm not sure exactly what those horns are good for. Now, you notice that they curve backwards and downwards. Well, they make really good back scratchers. Okay, back to our 2 camels here. These two, as I mentioned, they're brothers. Their names are Frankie and Sammy. Frankie and Sammy are dromedary camels. Dromedaries have one big hump on their back. There is another type of camels that have two humps, but they come from Asia, not from Africa. They're called Bactrian camels. Now, I often hear people say that camels store water in their humps, but that's not quite true. It's actually fat that's stored there, but it is the fat that allows them to go long periods of time in the desert without food or water. Speaking of water, our camels may not store water in their humps, but they can really drink it when they get the opportunity. A camel can drink 35 gallons of water at a single sitting. It only takes them about 10 minutes. Now, coming up here on the left side of the train, sitting on the ground next to the track, we'll be passing by the skull of a Nile crocodile. Now, this is a real skull, and this crocodile, when he was alive, was about 20 feet long, weighed about 2,000 pounds. Now, we don't have any Nile crocodiles here at the Brevard Zoo, but we do have their American cousins, the American crocodile, as well as the American alligator, both of which are on display in our wild Florida area. The Nile crocodile has a well-deserved reputation as an extremely dangerous animal, but they're not actually considered to be the most dangerous animals on the African continent, at least as far as humans are concerned. No, the most dangerous animal on the African continent is the hippopotamus, believe it or not. Even though hippos are vegetarians, they're extremely territorial, and that means they react angrily and violently to anyone or anything that invades their space. As we re-enter our tunnel here, I want to call your attention to the artwork on the left wall. Now, all these murals were painted by the students at Lewis Carroll Elementary School in nearby Merritt Island, Florida. And coming up on the right side of the train, we're going to pass by those 3 ostrich eggs again. Now, from this angle, you might notice each one has a hole drilled in it. Now, these were unfertilized ostrich eggs. The hole was drilled to allow us to remove the contents of the egg, the egg yolk and egg white. That allows us to place those empty eggshells out here for display in the hot Florida sun day after day. Coming up on our right side, our 2-sided aviary again. Now, the first half of the aviary here contains our cockatiel flock, along with a number of other exotic bird species. And the second half of the aviary contains our lorikeets. Lorikeets look kind of like big parakeets, but they've got blue heads, and red, orange, and yellow fronts. Lorikeets really like nectar. So if you come into the lorikeet aviary and you're carrying a nectar cup, well, you might become very popular very quickly, because they might sit on your head, your shoulders, your hands, as long as you have some nectar with you. Our cockatiels actually prefer seed sticks. So we have both seed sticks